Hello and welcome to Biohacking News. I'm Tony Wright and bringing in someone who's been tracking sleep long before TikTok caught up. Valerie Orsoni, how are you doing?
Doing great, thank you. I had an amazing sleep last night, and I'm so happy we're going to talk about that.
Great. Well, the internet is losing its mind over sleep. And TikTok is basically running a global sleep lab. And look, you've been writing about this long before it turned into 100 million views. And you actually wrote a very good piece recently on your Substack, which I really enjoyed. We'll get into that in a sec because you've got sort of 3 non-negotiables that you say really help with sleep, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, should we get into the madness first, and then we'll get into the sensible stuff.
Let's go to the madness first. Yeah.
Let's start with, I think, potato beds, because if you're not on TikTok, you might never have heard of this. It's had 17 million views. TikTok is turning bedrooms into human casserole dishes. And all you need to do is Google potato beds if you haven't actually seen them. But what you essentially do is you pile pillows and blankets around the edges of your bed to create a snug, fully cocooned, baked potato. What do you think of this first trend?
But I'm kind of, I'm envious. I write a Substack with substance. I should have done a TikTok video.
You should have. You should have.
Well, I mean, that I can still do it, but I mean, there's nothing new. I think this whole concept of being in a burrow, especially now winter, for the northern hemisphere, being in a burrow setting, being like surrounded and protected, because our what we call the prehistoric brain, or even the reptilian brain, we don't like to be exposed, especially at the belly area. So having something that protects you around, makes you feel safe, and safe lowers cortisol, and so then your sleep is better. That's why weighted blankets, which by the way have way more research on them than this cocoon thing, but still, weighted blankets kind of create the same feeling. They don't crush you, but they make you feel surrounded, protected. They also make sure that every single inch of your body is covered by something. And so that's not new. I think the TikTok trend is just great because it makes people realize that maybe they need to have a better way of organizing their bed. But I'm not sure there's a huge ton of studies on the potato bed per se. But look at the baby. We never leave a baby like this in the middle of a crib. We usually surround the baby with stuffed animals. We can debate about what the stuffed animals are stuffed with and if it's healthy, but they usually have pillows around and lots of things. So we kind of recreate the womb. And I think in our society, in our world, I mean, there's so much uncertainties. There's so much violence in the world. People watch TikTok, Netflix, and all this terrible news. And TV shows are stressful. I think the only place now where you are not connected yet too much is your bed. So if you can protect yourself even more from the outside world by building this soft barrier, it will increase your sleep. Except there are some dangers to that, and I want to make sure people understand that. If you are a young person, very young kid doing this, or a pet, or someone who has issues moving around, you can be really suffocating around all these things if they fall on you during the night. So you have to be careful to not be, pushing the envelope too far.
Yeah. Apparently it does. It's called cocooning. And there is some genuine
in the 80s already.
Yeah, exactly. There is some genuine neurophysiology behind it, and it helps people with anxiety and sensory sensitivity to be in a potato head. So who knew? Actually, when you mentioned weighted blankets there, I have switched to a weighted blanket this year, and that is something, if people haven't tried, it's pretty nice. I must admit, I now notice when I don't have one.
I mean, I travel with it, which adds 12 pounds to my suitcase. And I have a biohacker suitcase in which I have my, foldable mito red light mat. I have the weighted blanket. I have all of these things. If you go away for more than a few days, I'm going away for a month in December. I'm bringing pretty much my entire house but the sink, the other kitchen. But it does change everything. And I hope that trend of taking care of how you sleep will stay.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's the good thing about TikTok and potato beds getting so big. Now, the Scandinavian sleep methods had 46 million views. So TikTok is basically sleep obsessed at the moment. And this is it's all about 15 to 19 degrees. So basically, you want it cold at night for a drop in core body temperature. Too warm disrupts deep and REM sleep and REM sleep. And certainly from my own perspective, I found with the Oura Ring, it just works better when it's cold. It's not particularly nice going to sleep when it's cold, but as soon as you are asleep, your body heats up. So
Well, you don't want to be cold at night, so you want the environment to be cold, but you want to be warm under your blanket. Now, if you have cold feet at night, it's going to be hard to fall asleep.
that's very true. That's very true. But ideally, I mean, what is the core what is the ideal temperature for high quality sleep? I think this study is, or a lot of the sort of Scandinavian sleep methoders are saying 15 to 19 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, that's the consensus. But I go on a lot of expeditions around the world, right? And very often I go to bed when it's even in Antarctica, minus 40 degrees outside. As long
Mm,
as you have cold air, but a very warm cocoon. And when you're on an expedition, you are doing a potato bed by default. You have these huge, sleeping bags surrounding you. Um, as long as you're warm in it, it doesn't matter if it's 15 degrees, 19 or 3, but you
mm,
need to be super warm inside.
mm.
The one thing that's counterintuitive, though, is we know it has to be cold around so that it will lower your core body temperature and help with deep sleep. But if you take a hot shower before bed, it's a paradox. But warming your skin will actually help cooling your core and will also help with sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I like doing that as well. And I think that's great advice. And I should remind people that your 3 sleep protocols are going to be coming up after we talk about the TikTok trends. The next one is Sleepmaxxing with a double X. And that is something that people, like, if you're not 15, you probably haven't heard of it before. But this is basically a hashtag that people use when they're trying to max their sleep. So this encompasses everything that we've already talked about and we might talk about on this podcast, everything from weighted blankets, mouth tape, supplement stacks, melatonin, potato beds, whatever it might be. And the takeaway is sleep maxing can be really good, but if you're too focused on maxing your sleep and your sleep stats, an obsession with perfect sleep can be a problem because it drifts into orthosomnia. Oh dear. So you don't want to be basically turning it into a productivity contest. Don't go full Brian Johnson, basically. That's all they're saying.
Yeah, the idea is to not have an obsession, whatever it is. Orthorexia is with food, orthosomnia is with sleep. We don't want any obsession because obsession leads to a rise of cortisol. Anything that increases cortisol and also inflammation will not be healthy. So everything that becomes obsessive, I mean, I have friends, biohacker friends, kind of like Brian Johnson. They will never do anything to not impact so that they don't impact their sleep.
Mm,
And I know you and I, we wear Oura ring. We had lots of talks about it. I used my ring to improve my sleep. Now, I don't feel anxious when my Oura score is low, and it's not even the first thing I checked in the morning. As a matter of fact, the only time in the year where I really check my Oura ring first thing in the morning is when I want to do my true diagnostic testing, because I told myself I will only do it if I have 3 days of crowns, meaning I have the perfect night's sleep, so my inflammation levels are low. But
mm,
if you feel anxious every morning, that's a sign of orthosomnia. If you ruminate all day long or at night about how much you got in deep sleep, also orthosomnia signs. If you have super rigid routines because of some app you have, and
mm,
then you decline every single invitation, I'm not saying you have to say yes to everything, but wow. But then also there's another side effect of orthosomnia is sometimes you wake up and you're feeling so freaking great. You're like, whoa, I have an amazing night. Then you check your score and says, oh, shoot, I got 79. No, I shouldn't feel good. That's also orthosomnia.
mm,
You can also over optimize supplements at night and take too many things, too many hacks. It becomes like a orthosomnia burnout. And sometimes
mm.
you can't even fall asleep because you're training too hard. And so all of this performance anxiety will, of course, increase your cortisol. And guess what? That will impact your deep sleep. So it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I sort of feel like it's down to the individual sometimes, because I've spoken to people who I've been friends for a long time, and I've been quite surprised that they've said, "Oh, I just find it too stressful looking at my sleep stats." I don't. I find it sort of very motivating. On the very rare occasion, I find it stressful, but genuinely just find it motivating. But some people just want to know less. And let's face it, we have got a lot of inputs in terms of information in general, haven't we? So some people don't need one more.
You just need to be smart enough, to not to take everything with a grain of salt, and really, what you don't want to have when you want to have a great night of sleep, you don't want your prefrontal cortex to be super active, right? And so when you become stressed about, oh, how am I going to sleep tonight, your prefrontal cortex becomes super active, and that's the opposite of letting go. And also, by the way, being that stressed, sorry, will impact the melatonin release. It's going to disrupt it.
Yeah.
This is not what you want. And also your heart rate. Your heart rate will remain high. And again, high heart rate equals less deep sleep. It's so counterproductive.
Yeah. Well, look out for hashtag Sleepmaxxing and the sort of the sister of Sleepmaxxing, which is hashtag Morning Shed, which is basically nighttime routines. I'm not really quite sure why it's Morning Shed, but it is. That's had 40 million views. And then the last one is Eye Movement Sleep Hacks. This has had 4 million views on TikTok. This is control, and I think this is interesting based on what you were just talking about in terms of how jacked up we are just before bed. Controlled pre-bed eye movements are trending as a way to signal the brain to downshift. It's inspired by relaxation therapy and REM-linked calming techniques, can reduce sympathetic drive. And Beauty Sleep Boutique, who sent these stats over, sort of say, well, the problem is that what group benefits from this hack the most? Which groups are seeing this on TikTok? Well, it's people who are spending hours on TikTok just before bed. So if they stop doing that for a bit and do this, then they're going to feel great, aren't they? So I mean, that is part of the problem. I mean, better than any of these hacks is putting your phone away 1 hour before bed. I mean, just better than any of that.
And I would go further than that. I have been running a lot. I love testing myself. I'm a human lab. I'm not going to share with you right now. I've been testing myself for the past 5 weeks on the nutrition front, but I've been also testing something because of the saying that you just said, put the phone down at least an hour before. I tried something. I never watch TV really. For me, TV is associated with the rowing machine or bike at the gym. I don't watch TV on a sofa. But for the past 3 weeks, I've been running a test to see if I watch TV, a happy movie, nothing sad, like something that supposedly makes you feel good, until 7 p.m., which is 2.5 hours before I turn off my light. Well, every single time I tried that, I woke up around 3 to 4 a.m., could not fall back asleep for 2 hours, even though I have all these techniques. Now, when I usually wake up, I have techniques and I go back to sleep. So I tried once, twice, 3 times. And then I'm like, okay, this is strange. Maybe it's placebo, or like I know I have to wake up at 3 to support my theory. So then I turned off everything that could give me a time. But then my phone was recording, my Oura was recording if I was. And yes, every time I watch TV, all the way up to 5 p.m., it would impact my sleep 10 hours later.
Wow.
And so I think this whole thing of put your phone down is good, obviously, but also check what you put on your retina, even 5 hours before you go to sleep. It's not something that does not have an impact. It does impact you more than you think.
Yeah, the problem is you can't escape life, can you? And there's that really interesting study when they sent a load of campers out into the Rocky Mountains where there was no light and there were no devices, and it was completely natural light only. And I think on average they went to sleep 2.5 hours earlier and slept 2.5 hours longer a night. And of course, that is really inspiring.
With me because it's 24-hour daylight.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we had this mad. I live in Portugal now, as you know, Valerie, and we had this mad power cut in April where the whole country was without power for about 12 hours. And actually, we were also without internet for about 6 or 7 hours, which at
Oh
first
my
was sort
God,
of,
how did you survive?
yeah, it was so really weird at first because we were like, oh, is the world ending? And then after a couple of hours, we're just sort of actually doing things in real life, chatting to the neighbors, looking after each other, hanging out outside, and then going to bed when the sun went down because there was nothing else to do. Telling each other stories instead of reading books at bedtime because we didn't have any light. It was actually, and then everyone looked back very fondly on that particular day. But of course, then the lights came on at 11 o'clock. We heard everyone cheering out the window. Then we were back to normal again. And the next night, it was just the same as usual. Even though we said, oh, we've got to do that every night. We didn't.
But that's why Jewish people who have who are strict and observe Shabbat, like in a very intense way, they do have a 24-hour window in their week, 1/7 of the week, where they have no electricity. I mean, they might have light on, but and no internet, nothing like that, and it increases your social interactions. I wish we all had our own, Shabbat, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, whatever, it doesn't matter, where we are disconnected. As a matter of fact, to help with that, my phone is always in a ringer off position. I am not reachable, never. Like if you want to reach me, you have to send me some sort of message. And since I have 0 notifications on, I will see it when I connect to my phone and actually look, oh, did I get a message? And people complain, oh my God, Valerie, you're never reachable. Yeah, but then I'm reaching with myself. I'm like, I'm centered. I am not constantly distracted.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And you're still reachable. I feel like if I need to WhatsApp you, I can, Valerie. So it's okay. It still works, doesn't it?
A special thing. He has all these rings, special tone just for you.
So let's get on to then your protocols, your 3 protocols that you've been testing out. The first one, imagery distraction, and this is from a study in 2002, scientifically documented, and you found that worked well, didn't you?
Not only I found out it worked, but I'm going to tell you first how it works, maybe. But then what I wanted to say, which is very funny, is when I thought it did not work and I was complaining to myself in the morning, oh, I didn't fall asleep. I checked my Oura stats and I'm like, oh, actually, I was asleep. So I was dreaming that I was going through the process of falling asleep, but I was sleeping, which is really strange. And that's when I like having an Oura, because it sometimes tells you, hey, your brain or your mind is telling you something wrong. You did not wake up at 2 and never went back to sleep. You actually went back to sleep. As a matter of fact, 90% of the people would tell you, I didn't sleep last night, not even 1 hour. It's always wrong. They always sleep at least 4 or 5, but they have no recollection. So imagery distraction works with everyone. I want to tell you, I like people saying, everyone is different. No, this works for everyone. I've tested it on so many insomniac people. They're like, wow. So it really reduces what we call sleep latency, which is the number of minutes it takes you to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Very often, if you're like, either you're exhausted and within 3 minutes you're sleeping like a dog on the side. But very often, if you are ruminating through the day or projecting yourself to tomorrow, or you are going to take 30 to 45 minutes to fall asleep. And that's not good. It should be anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. Doing that technique also will reduce your stress and what I just talked about, rumination, like all this intrusive cognitive activity. So the way it works is, because your brain is a complex thing, but it's also very simple, right? It cannot do at the same time ruminating and deliberately generate an image. You cannot do both at the same time. You have to focus. Your brain has to choose. And the good news is it will always choose the visualization. It will always go from ruminating to visualizing. And so I use the alphabet. There are other techniques, but the alphabet I think is great. You have enough letters. I start with A and I picture something that starts with an A in color, texture, 3D. Okay. Not just a word, not just a word. It doesn't work. You have to make it work, you have to think about the word and visualize it. So A, armchair. I visualize an armchair. Okay. It can be 3D moving, it doesn't matter. I visualize it. Then I go to another word. It could be Austria. It could be any word that starts with an A. And if it's a country, I will either visualize with the shape of the country or the flag. Alligator. I visualize an alligator. And if I don't find a word more in that letter or at all for a letter, no stress. I just move to the next letter. No
Mm,
pressure. You don't want the cortisol to go up. So B,
mm,
C, and everything. Usually, if you are not under a ton of stress, you should fall asleep before G, H letters. Now,
mm,
if you're extremely stressed, you might have to go all the way to Z and maybe back to A and B. Okay. Very rarely. The vast majority of the times when I thought, oh my God, I did it 3 times. I could not fall asleep. I checked my Oura stats and I'm like, oh, actually, I was only awake for 10 minutes or something. So it really, really, really works. It also helps you go back very quickly in deep sleep. So that's
mm.
very powerful.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I guess a while back, when I started learning my neuro-linguistic programming techniques, there's something similar, which is the Betty Erickson method, which I often teach people, which is actually quite similar, but you focus on 3 things you can see in your mind's eye, and then 3 things you can hear, and 3 things you can feel. And then you do 2, and then you do 1, and you cycle through. And as you said, the only reason it doesn't work is when your mind drifts off, and the
Exactly.
process of bringing your mind back is actually just as important as the exercise itself.
Yeah, that's a very
Um,
good. If you have toxic thoughts, you don't want to just push them back violently with your brain. Just say, hey, I acknowledge them, but please go away and focus on my exercise.
yeah, yeah. And the other one I do in the middle of the night, because I mean, all of us are busy and none of us are perfect in terms of like clearing our brains of everything before sleep. And often random thoughts about work and working with authors and all sorts of things pop in the middle of the night. Is just focus on a mantra. And it doesn't have to be posh. It could be any sort of word that I want to focus on, and doing it on a breath in and breath out.
Yeah,
And often I'm so jacked up that my mind will drift off after like 2 or 3. But if I can get to 10, I'm asleep. By the time it's 10, it's
yeah.
asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
breathing also helps. There's another visualization exercise that really works well. Is visualizing the horizon with the sea, which you can do in Portugal easily because you see the sea. Is looking at the sun that's setting, so you see the size shrinking, and you visualize it shrinking, and then you visualize it expanding and shrinking, and at one point again, it's kind of
Mm.
tiring a bit in a good way, and you will fall asleep.
The problem is that I'm working, as you know, I work with a lot of other authors, Valerie, and a lot of them are now based in the States. And I've got meetings until 10 o'clock tonight, Portugal time.
No, no,
So
no
yeah, it's just
way.
one of those things. Got to have an evening a week. I think I'm working with American authors until 9:15, and then an Australian author. So it's morning for her, but that's just one of those things. It's only one day a week, so it's fine. Now, progressive muscle relaxation, US military version. Wow, I guess this is a little bit like a yoga nidra.
It's kind of nidra, but there is no like spiritual component or like even concrete analysis of like a body scan or whatever. It's kind of nidra, but to be honest, this works with 90% of the population. With me, it's hit or miss. If it's a hit, it's right away. If it's miss, I go back to my alphabet.
Mm,
But it also helps because the way it works, it's called a progressive muscle relaxation. So you
mm.
pretty much contract and release each muscle group.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And you start, if you want to do your face, but I don't want because of the wrinkles. But then you can start with your arms, your hands, everything, your glutes, your legs, whatever. It really helps what we call reduce stress-induced hypertonicity when you are contracted. By the way, because we are like this all day long. So here we are contracting on purpose and releasing. And by
Mm,
doing this releasing part, it activates the parasympathetic system, which
yeah.
in turn, which is what we want, lowers our heart rate because that's what we want. And that's what does not happen when people go into orthosomnia. Remember, we said they're so stressed, their heart rate goes up. And so this would help bringing it down. And
Mm,
if you don't believe me or Tony, just check it. If you have like a watch that measures your heart rhythm, you'll see when you do these contractions and releases, you will lower your heart rate. It also reduces your tension, and it also reduces sleep latency. So this famous time we need to fall asleep, I used to think, oh, it doesn't matter. Actually, it does. If you fall asleep within 3 minutes, it means you've really pulled too much on your energy today. If it takes too long, you haven't managed your stress well enough. So
Mm,
the way you do it, you want to contract for 5 seconds and release for 10. Now, you can also do what you just said, add breathing onto it. You can contract while you're inhaling or holding or whatever, and then release and exhale for 10 seconds. By moving this at the same time of breathing, believe me, no toxic thoughts can make it through. You're too busy.
yeah, exactly. I wonder if part of the reason it works, part of the NLP stuff we talked about is hypnosis. And one of the hypnosis techniques I love is as you are taking someone into a mild hypnotic state, getting them to open and close their eyes and do it 3 times and giving them some sort of suggestion that they'll go deeper into relaxation when they close their eyes. And the reason I think it works mainly is because it's so bloody annoying opening your eyes when you're relaxed so someone says you got to open your eyes, or you got to flex your muscles, or you've got to squeeze your and you think I just want to relax. So and it
Exactly.
sends you into a deeper state simply because you push against it.
That's true. Yeah, that also is true. It's also maybe a reflex, like, oh, that's it. I'm done working. I want to sleep.
Yeah, yeah. So the last one is 478 breath, the anti-rumination method. That is your first sleep protocol. It's a 2020 study which showed that slow breathing increases HRV, improves oxygenation, and reduces sympathetic stress activity. That sounds great. And apparently people start yawning by the third cycle.
Just thinking about it, I was about to yawn. um, People like to do cardiac coherence to fall asleep. When you inhale for 5, exhale for 6, for 5 as well. So that's about
Mm,
6 cycles a minute. This study went a bit further, saying we need less than 6 cycles a minute. So here you inhale for 4, always inhale through the nose to avoid hyperoxygenation. Then you hold for 7 seconds, which for some people is pretty long. And then you exhale for 8. Of
mm,
course, you have to count in your head when you do that, because by doing that, it will also occupy your brain and you won't think about your problems at work or in the family or whatever. And when you have an extended exhale, it will activate your vagus nerve. And as you know, a healthy vagus nerve means a slower heart. And then a slower heart, as you know, is better sleep. It's a virtual circle, really. You can
mm.
really, and you can mix all of them. I mean, nothing prevents you from contracting your muscles as you inhale. Really, you can really find what works for you. Anything can be, put together. You can inhale while thinking about an image as well. You can play around. You don't have to blindly follow a rule or a technique or whatever. You can just take from it and adapt it to yourself.
Oh well, I'm gonna look very strange in bed tonight. I'm gonna be contracting muscles, breathing weirdly. It's all gonna be going on.
Come on,
um,
hey, your mask.
oh yeah, all of that, obviously, and obviously the weighted blanket.
Yeah, of course.
Um, yeah. So, Valerie, I've been doing a midweek podcast, which is daily routines, and that's been really fun. For this week's midweek podcast, should we talk about daily routines or your recent adventures? Because you've been off on another adventure recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I've climbed my 44th mountain over 4,000 meters last month. It was the second time I climbed Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. But the first time was 27 years ago. And let me
Wow.
tell you something. 27 years ago, it took me twice as long to climb it, and I
Mm,
was exhausted on the top. At 55, I pretty much hiked up so easily. And on the top, almost 6,000 meters, I was jogging to the final point. I was so strong, not out of breath. I felt so like younger than 27 years ago. And I told myself when I reached the top, I'm like, oh my God, biohacking really works.
wow. So, what was your routine like? How do you sort of get over all the intensity, and how do you get your body into a good state to sort of deal with all the trials and tribulations as you go up? I mean, since we talk about routines, what do you do differently? And what do you think gives you an edge when you are going through that extreme environment?
So the good news is about sleep is like you don't have TV or anything there. There is almost no signal, if not actually at all. and there is no plugs to charge, so you need your charger. So it really limits the amount of time you spend
Mm.
on the plane. So routine wise, and also because you're about 2 weeks away from anything, even your URA will stop working at one point. It cannot store that many, days of data. So you
Yeah.
will be totally disconnected. Kind of what happened in Portugal, but for 15 days when you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
nothing. So the routine is like I would say is dictated or imposed by the whole mountain climbing part. Like every day you wake up pretty much when the sun rises. Um, I used to not have breakfast for the longest of time. I was fasting 18 hours a day, and now I stopped and now I have breakfast. So on the mountain, I would have breakfast, but more carbs obviously than here because I will need the glucose as I go up. I bring some supplements. Of course, I don't take 85 of them like there, but there are a few supplements I always take with me on the mountain. It's like creatine, my stemrigen, my urolithin A, vitamin C, obviously 2 grams a day because of all the cosmic rays we get the higher we go on the mountain. So I'm really strict on the routine on some supplements and my sleep stack, which is a tart cherry, GABA, glycine, and that's it. That's the three main ones. I will always take with me as well.
Mm.
So I have all this routine in place, which I kind of streamline a bit and downgrade because I can't bring everything. Um, and then the big thing is it's not a routine, it's more like keeping a healthy habit. When I see people climbing on treks, I see them eating a lot of trash, like not trash in the first sense of the term, but like drink this strange colored drinks supposedly full of good things for you, or energy bars which are full of bad stuff. I don't do that. I eat at meals. I can bring a few nuts with me, a little bit of dark chocolate. That's it. You don't need to eat like a pig because you're climbing a mountain, and my body is my temple. I'm not going to bring all these, Mars bars in my body. I don't need it.
That's interesting because when I climbed Mount Tubkal, I was keto, and then I got about halfway up, and I had the sweetest can of Fanta I've ever drunk in my life.
Of course, you have rules, and then you can, But for instance, we're speaking of sleep. Well, wherever I go climb or ski to the south or wherever, I always have my earplugs, my mask, and my night guard so that I don't clench too much, and my a mouth tape. This
Mm,
I don't forget it. That's part of the deal.
mm,
And I
mm.
always tell people, if you like me travel a lot, you have to have a routine that goes with you. You cannot just say, "Oh, I will only be good at home and then I will do whatever," because you
Mm.
will ruin your efforts by doing so.
Yeah. Well, and I think sleep can be relearned. Even after 20 years or so, I think today's conversation has proved that, even if it's a potato bed. Valerie, it's really lovely to chat to you. What have you got planned for Christmas and the New Year?
I'm going for a month to New York starting tomorrow. So that's why I'm bringing the entire, everything but the kitchen sink with me.
Mm.
So that it's a month, it's the 12th of the year. I can't really leave everything behind. New Year's Eve, I'll spend in San Francisco at a crazy party. How about yourself?
We will be a little bit in Portugal partying and a little bit in England with the family where it'll be a lot colder.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a much calmer festive season here than I always used to end up in the UK, just
Mm.
completely drained by about the 18th because there were so many nights out, which invariably involved alcohol. And I mean, I don't really drink anymore, but it's just a slightly chiller landscape here in Portugal, so that's quite nice.
So and the thing is, I will not go out any night of the month except maybe Christmas and New Year's Eve. But I don't have this rigid thing. So if something happens, I still go out. But I want to be good at least 6, 7 nights a week. If one is out, it's okay.
Exactly. It's okay. Valerie, it is so lovely to talk to you. Thank you for coming on. I think it's a bit early to say Merry Christmas, isn't it?
Early. You can say Merry everything, but Merry Christmas will do.
Merry Christmas, Merry everything. Where can people find you and your Substack and your Instagram?
So Instagram, my name at Valerie Orsoni. Make sure you engage because a lot of people now are just watching without engaging, and it's super important to like and comment and share. And then my Substack is valbiohacker.com, and I share a ton of whatever we talked about today, research and some of the studies I do on myself as well. So my results of my lab results, I share everything.
Yeah, you do. And listen, maybe in 2026 we'll get to meet in person. You never know.
I want that. We need to go to a conference together.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Valerie, lovely to see you. Speak to you soon.
Talk to you soon.